In the 1920s, Detroit had more millionaires per person than any other city in the world. This fact hides a dark secret. One industry built all that wealth. That same industry would later break the city. You need to understand how this happened. It is a story of human choices and hard money. The rise was fast. The fall was slow. Then the fall became fast. You will see how putting all your faith in one thing can destroy everything. In the late 1800s, Detroit was a normal city. It made stoves, shoes, and wagons. Then a few men changed the path of the city forever. Ransom Olds built a factory in 1899. He started making cars on a moving line. His factory produced 4 cars a day. This was a new idea, but it was just the start. People wondered if a machine could move faster than a human hand. Henry Ford answered that question. In 1903, Ford started the Ford Motor Company. He bought a large piece of land in Highland Park. In 1913, he put in the first real moving assembly line. Before this line, one worker built a whole car in 12 hours. After the line, a car came out every 93 minutes. The speed of the line changed the world. Workers felt this deeply when they stood next to the moving belt. The belt never stopped. If a worker got tired, they could not rest. They had to keep up. Many men lost fingers. Some men lost hands. But the pay was good. Ford shocked the country on January 5, 1914. He paid his workers $5 a day. This was double the normal factory pay. Newspapers across America printed this news. Thousands of men rushed to Detroit. They stood outside the Ford factory in the freezing cold. They wanted a job. They wanted the $5. The $5 day had a hidden catch. Ford created a department to check on workers. He hired 50 investigators. These men went to workers' homes. They looked at the furniture. They looked at the food in the kitchen. They checked if the man drank alcohol. They checked if the man saved money. If the worker failed the check, he lost the extra pay. This is a lesser-known fact about the famous $5 day. You might ask why Ford cared about their homes. Ford wanted to control his workers. He wanted them to be good citizens. He wanted them to buy the cars they built. But he wanted them to do it his way. Detroit grew very fast. The auto industry needed space. The city needed people. Between 1910 and 1930, the population of Detroit grew by over 1 million people. In 1910, Detroit had 465,000 people. By 1930, it had 1,568,000 people. The city could not build houses fast enough. People lived in crowded wooden shacks. The factories poured smoke into the sky. The river smelled bad, but the money was there. The city was rich. Then came the Great Depression. Car sales stopped. Factories closed. People lost their jobs. This feeling spread through every street in Detroit. Men stood in bread lines for food. But the auto industry survived. World War II saved it. The government needed tanks, planes, and trucks. The auto factories stopped making cars. They made weapons. Architect Albert Kahn designed a huge factory called Willow Run. It was 1 mile long. It employed over 40,000 people. The factory made 0 planes in 1941. By 1944, it made 1 bomber plane every single hour. The government called Detroit the arsenal of democracy. During the war, the city needed more workers. White men went to fight in the war. Factories needed people to run the machines. Black Americans moved from the South to Detroit to fill the jobs. You might wonder how word traveled so fast back then. Factory owners sent recruiters to the South. They handed out flyers promising high pay and good homes. Over 50,000 black workers came to Detroit between 1940 and 1943. They rode trains up north. They wanted a better life. They wanted to escape racism in the South. But the racism followed them. The housing rules in Detroit were strict. Black people could only live in certain small areas. The federal government made rules to keep neighborhoods separated. This was called redlining. Banks refused to give loans to black families in white areas. White workers got new homes in the suburbs. Black workers were forced into old, crowded buildings in the city. The pressure built up. On a hot Sunday in June 1943, the pressure broke. A fight started at Belle Isle. This is a large park in the Detroit River. A rumor spread that a white mob had thrown a black woman and her baby off a bridge. Another rumor spread that a black man had hurt a white woman. Neither rumor was true. People felt this as the rumors flew through the streets. White mobs pulled black people off streetcars. Black mobs smashed windows on white-owned stores. The violence lasted for 3 days. The police did little to stop it. The governor called in the army. Tanks rolled down the streets of Detroit. When it ended, 34 people were dead. 25 of the dead were black. Hundreds were hurt. The police arrested mostly black people. This riot was a warning sign. The city ignored it. After the war, the factories went back to making cars. The money came back. In 1950, Detroit hit its highest population ever. The census counted 1,849,568 people. Detroit was the 5th largest city in America. General Motors, Ford, and Chrysler made most of the cars in the world. The city looked rich. It built big new buildings downtown. It built new highways. But a hidden problem was growing. The problem was the suburbs. The government paid for new roads. These roads made it easy to drive out of the city. White families started to leave Detroit. You might ask why they left if the city was so rich. They left for many reasons. They wanted bigger houses, they wanted yards, they wanted to get away from black people. The federal government helped them leave. The government gave loans to white families to buy houses in the suburbs. The government gave no loans to black families. The auto companies followed the white families to the suburbs. In 1950, all the big auto factories were inside the city of Detroit. By 1960, the companies were building new factories in places like Warren, Dearborn, and Flint. General Motors built a massive tech center in Warren. Ford built a huge office campus in Dearborn. The companies wanted open land. They wanted to be close to the workers who moved to the suburbs. The very companies that built Detroit started taking their money out of Detroit. They left the old, dirty factories behind. They built shiny new buildings outside the city limits. The city leaders made a bad choice. They decided to knock down old neighborhoods to build more highways. This was called urban renewal. Mayor Albert Cobo took office in 1950. Cobo did not like the black neighborhoods. He wanted to clear them out. You might ask where the people who lived there would go. The city did not care. In 1950 and 1951, the city bulldozed a place called Black Bottom. Black Bottom was a strong black neighborhood. It had jazz clubs, stores, and restaurants. The city destroyed 100 black businesses. They displaced thousands of black families. The city promised these families new public housing, but the new housing was never built. The families had to move into smaller, more crowded spaces. Black families felt this as their homes turned to dirt. They had no power. They had no place to go. The new highways cut right through the black neighborhoods. The Chrysler Freeway and the Ford Freeway split the city into pieces. You might look at a map today and see these big roads. Those roads used to be streets where people lived. The highways made it easy for white people to drive to work in the city and drive back to the suburbs. They did not have to stop. They did not have to see the damage left behind. The city destroyed its own neighborhoods to help people leave the city. This is a historical fact that is hard to believe. The tax money left with the people. In the 1950s, Detroit collected a lot of property taxes. The rich auto companies paid taxes too. But as the rich people and the companies moved to the suburbs, the tax money went down. The suburbs had new schools, new parks, and new police cars. Detroit had less money to pay for basic things. The streets started to get potholes. The streetlights broke. The schools got old. The auto industry was still strong in the 1950s. but it was strong outside the city limits. The people left inside Detroit had fewer jobs. They could not get to the new suburban factories. They did not own cars. It is a sad fact that the people who built the cars in Detroit could not afford to buy them, and now they could not get to the factories to build them. This feeling grew in the neighborhoods without jobs. The men who came for the $5 day now had nothing. Their children had nothing. The anger grew. The city leaders kept making deals with the auto companies. They lowered taxes to keep the companies happy. The companies paid less money to the city. The city had less money to help the poor. You might wonder why the city leaders did this. They feared the companies would leave completely. They thought giving the companies what they wanted was the only way to survive. But this choice hurt the city. It hurt the regular people. This brings us to the edge of the cliff. By the late 1950s, Detroit was still famous. It was still Motor City. It played loud Motown music on the radio. But the base of the city was weak. The city depended on one industry. That industry was packing its bags. The jobs were leaving. The people were fighting. The neighborhoods were broken. The tax money was gone. The richest city in America was just a few steps away from ruin. The warnings were there in 1943. The signs were there in 1950. Nobody with power listened. The 1960s began. The auto industry in Detroit was at the top of the world. The three big companies made big cars. These cars used a lot of gas. They were heavy. They were fast. Then a small car from Germany arrived in America. It was the Volkswagen Beetle. The leaders in Detroit looked at this small car. They laughed at it. Detroit made huge cars with big tail fins. The Beetle was tiny. It had no tail fins. Auto executives felt this deep in their stomachs when they saw the Beetle sales numbers go up month after month. You might ask why Detroit did not just copy the small car. The leaders in Detroit believed Americans would never buy small cars. This single mistake opened the door for foreign companies to steal the American car market. The problems in the city kept growing while the leaders ignored the small cars. In July 1967, the pressure in the city exploded. On July 23rd, the police raided an illegal drinking club on 12th Street. They arrested 82 people. A crowd gathered outside. The crowd threw bottles at the police. The police ran away. The looting started. People felt this when the glass broke on every store window on 12th Street. The fires started. The fires burned all night. You might wonder how a simple police raid caused so much destruction. The raid was just the spark. The wood was 20 years of anger. Black people were still forced to live in bad housing. The jobs were moving away. The police treated black citizens with violence. The riot lasted for 5 whole days. The governor called in the National Guard. President Lyndon Johnson sent the United States Army into the city. Tanks drove down the streets again. When the smoke cleared, 43 people were dead. Most of them were black. The police and the army killed many of them. Over 2,000 buildings were destroyed. The city looked like a war zone. Before the summer of 1967, some people thought Detroit could fix its problems. After the summer, everyone knew the city was broken. This feeling stayed in the white neighborhoods. White families packed their bags in record numbers. In 1968, 80,000 white people left Detroit. They left the city to the people who could not leave. Then came the year 1973. This was the turning point that broke the auto industry. In October 1973, Arab countries stopped selling oil to America. This was the oil embargo. Gas stations in America ran out of gas. Long lines of cars formed at the pumps. Workers felt this panic when they saw the gas prices double in just a few weeks. You might ask why a lack of oil hurt Detroit so much. Detroit only knew how to make big cars. Big cars used a lot of gas. Nobody wanted to buy big gas-guzzling cars anymore. In 1973, a Chevrolet Impala was easy to sell. In 1974, a Chevrolet Impala sat on the lot with no buyer. The mighty American auto industry almost died because they refused to make a small car. The factories had to slow down, the workers lost their shifts, the money stopped flowing into Detroit. In 1974, the city elected a new mayor. His name was Coleman Young. He was the first black mayor of Detroit. He was a strong leader. He wanted to save the city, but he faced a terrible situation. You might wonder what a mayor can do when the jobs disappear. Young tried to bring new businesses to the city, but the auto companies were already closing factories inside Detroit. In 1974 alone, Michigan lost 70,000 auto jobs. Families felt this pain when the factory whistle blew for the last time. Fathers came home with no paycheck. In the 1950s, a man could walk into a factory and get a job on the same day. In the 1970s, the factory doors were locked. The auto companies broke the promise they made to the city. They took the jobs and left the people behind. The 1980s brought a new enemy. Japanese car companies sent their cars to America. Toyota, Honda, and Nissan made small cars. These cars were cheap. They did not break down. They used very little gas. American buyers loved them. This reality hit Detroit auto workers when they saw Honda cars parked in their own driveways. You might ask why American cars were so bad. The American companies focused on speed and size. The Japanese companies focused on quality. An American car from 1980 broke often. A Japanese car from 1980 ran for years without a problem. In 1980, for the first time in history, more foreign cars were sold in America than American cars. The big three companies had to fire more workers to save money. In 1980, Chrysler faced total ruin. The government gave Chrysler $1.5 billion to stay alive. A man named Lee Iacocca took over Chrysler. He fired thousands of workers. He closed factories. He saved the company. But the closed factories meant more empty lots in Detroit. There is a fact from this time that shows how desperate the city became. In 1981, Mayor Coleman Young made a deal with General Motors. GM wanted to build a new factory. They picked a neighborhood called Poletown. It was a stable neighborhood of Polish immigrants and black families. It had 1,500 homes, 140 businesses, a hospital, and a church. You might ask why the city agreed to destroy a whole neighborhood. The city feared GM would leave the state completely. The city used a law to take the land. They forced the people to sell their homes. They bulldozed the entire neighborhood to the ground. A living neighborhood full of families became an empty dirt lot in just a few months. GM got the land for almost nothing. The city gave GM $200 million in tax breaks to build the factory. The city gave away a neighborhood and its tax money just to keep one company happy. The factory opened. It provided jobs, but it did not fix the city. The tax breaks meant the city got no money from the factory. The population kept falling. In 1950, the city had 1.8 million people. By 1990, the number dropped to just over 1 million. People left their homes behind. The city had 50,000 empty houses. This feeling sat heavy on the remaining residents. Empty houses attracted drug dealers. Crime went up. You might wonder why the city did not knock down the empty houses. The city had no money. The tax base was gone. In the 1920s, Detroit had the best police force in the world. By the 1990s, it took the police an hour to respond to a call. The city that built the American middle class could not protect its own citizens on the streets. The 1990s and 2000s were a slow death. The auto companies moved more factories to Mexico. They moved factories to the South. They paid lower wages in those places. Every time a factory closed in Detroit, the local stores around it closed too. The bakeries closed, the shoe stores closed, the grocery stores closed. This cold truth hit the old people in the neighborhoods. They could not buy food within walking distance. You might ask how a city survives when it has no stores and no tax money. It does not survive. It just decays. In 2001, a man named Kwame Kilpatrick became mayor. He was young. He promised to fix the city, but he was corrupt. While the city was falling apart, the mayor stole money. He bought expensive cars. He threw big parties. He used city money for himself. The people of Detroit were losing their homes. The mayor was living in a mansion with taxpayer money. In 2008, the final blow came. The whole country had a banking crisis. The banks ran out of money. People could not get loans to buy cars. Car sales stopped completely. General Motors and Chrysler ran out of cash. In 2009, both companies filed for bankruptcy. This news shattered the remaining auto workers. They lost their health insurance. They lost their life savings. The government had to step in. The government gave the auto companies $80 billion to save them from dying. The companies survived, but they emerged smaller. They closed more factories. They fired more workers. In the 1950s, the auto industry ruled the world. In 2009, the auto industry was a patient on life support. The two biggest car companies in the world went broke in the same year. This destroyed whatever was left of Detroit. The city of Detroit depended on the auto companies for almost all its money. When the companies went bankrupt, the city lost all its tax income. The city could not pay its bills. It could not pay the police. It could not pay the firefighters. It could not turn on the streetlights. In March 2013, the governor of Michigan took control of the city. He sent a lawyer named Kevin Orr to look at the books. You might wonder what Kevin Orr found when he opened the city books. He found a nightmare. The city owed $18 billion. It owed money to the bank. It owed money to the retired police officers. It owed money to the retired teachers. On July 18, 2013, Detroit filed for bankruptcy. It was the largest city in American history to go bankrupt. Detroit was the city of the $5 day. It was the city of the arsenal of democracy. Now it was the city of bankruptcy. The retired city workers felt this when they heard the news. They worked for 30 years. They were promised a pension. Now the city said it could not pay them. The judge in the bankruptcy case had to decide who got paid and who lost their money. The bankruptcy was the climax of a 50-year fall. It was the direct result of putting all faith in one industry. When the auto industry got sick, Detroit got sick. When the auto industry moved away, Detroit died. The city built the machines that moved the world, but it forgot to build a future for its own people. The money left, the people left, the buildings fell down. This is how Detroit went from rich to ruined.